All right, let's get into it. Today, we're heading down under to figure out what makes Australia's top universities tick. And we're not just going to give you a list of names. No, we're counting down the top 5 and digging into the specific, sometimes wild, stories and breakthroughs that put them on the map.
So, you're thinking about studying down under. It makes sense. It's this massive country with a huge reputation for being a great place to live and learn. But what's the secret sauce? What really makes it such a magnet for students from all over the globe?
Well, okay, beyond the beaches and the killer lifestyle, it's actually a really strategic move. You're getting a top-tier, world-class education, all in English, and you're geographically right on Asia's doorstep. That combination has helped turn the whole country into this buzzing hub for new ideas and innovation.
And all of that has created this incredible melting pot, a huge community of international students. But that leads to a problem, right? With so many fantastic universities, the choice can be, well, a little overwhelming. So today, we're going to cut right through all that noise and count down the absolute top 5.
Kicking off our countdown at number 5, we've got Monash University in Melbourne. Fun fact, it's actually the largest university in Australia student-wise, with over 86,000 of them. But its global reputation, its real claim to fame, is built on pioneering medical research.
Monash is the birthplace of a technology that has literally changed millions of lives, in vitro fertilization, or IVF. You've probably heard it called the test tube baby procedure. It's essentially a method where fertilization happens outside the body in a lab to help people who are having trouble conceiving.
And if you look at the timeline, you can see just how crucial their role was. A team at Monash achieved the world's first ever pregnancy from IVF way back in 1973. Now, while that pregnancy sadly didn't go to term, the research they did, the groundwork they laid, is what made the first successful IVF birth possible just 5 years later in the UK. Monash was right there at the very beginning of it all.
But it wasn't all just quiet work in the lab. Monash also has this reputation for a really fiery political spirit. It even earned the nickname Australia's Berkeley. Back in the 60s and 70s, the campus was a total hotbed for student activism, protests about everything from the Vietnam War to the death penalty. It really cemented its identity as a place where free speech wasn't just allowed, it was encouraged.
All right, let's head to number 4, the Australian National University, or ANU, down in the capital, Canberra. Now, this place is unique. It's the only university in Australia that was founded directly by an Act of Parliament. It was created in 1946 for a very specific reason, to help rebuild the nation after the war.
So when you're literally built for big-picture thinking, you tend to tackle the biggest questions imaginable. And you can't get much bigger than this one. For decades, scientists were pretty sure that the expansion of the universe was, gradually slowing down. It was just the accepted wisdom.
But research out of ANU completely turned that idea on its head. In 2011, an ANU researcher named Brian Smith actually won a Nobel Prize for what his team discovered. They proved that this mysterious thing called dark energy, which makes up most of the universe, is actually causing its expansion to speed up. It's accelerating, a totally mind-bending idea that changed cosmology forever.
Coming in hot at number 3 is the University of Sydney. It's Australia's oldest university, and it's got this really cool identity. This blend of historic, kind of Gothic-looking buildings and super modern, cutting-edge innovation.
I mean, it was founded way back in 1850, and it was already ahead of its time. For one, it was a secular university, not tied to any church, which was a pretty big deal in the British Empire. And get this, by the 1880s, it became one of the first universities in the world to let women in on the exact same basis as men. And that forward-thinking spirit even shows up in how they fund their research. There's this amazing story. Their world-famous Charles Perkins Center, which tackles huge problems like diabetes and heart disease, got a massive funding boost from a pretty wild source, the sale of a Picasso painting that someone had donated. It sold for over 20 million Aussie dollars. Art literally bankrolling science.
So what do you do with that kind of cash? Well, it fuels some pretty incredible projects. They're working on things like a smart insulin pill to replace daily shots for diabetics. They're building these incredibly detailed 3D models of the brain to fight Alzheimer's, and they're even figuring out how we can get self-driving cars to work safely in our cities.
Okay, our runner-up. At number 2, we have the University of New South Wales, or UNSW, also in Sydney. Think of it like this. If the University of Sydney is the wise old institution, UNSW is the young, super ambitious tech powerhouse. It was founded right after World War II for one reason, to power Australia's technological future.
So UNSW's whole identity is about solving real-world engineering problems, and there's no better example than their work on solar power. For the longest time, the biggest issue with solar was just efficiency. A whole bunch of sunlight would hit a panel and just pass right through it. All that energy just gone.
UNSU's solution was one of those things that's so simple it's absolutely brilliant. They came up with something called the PERC solar cell. Basically, they added a special layer to the back of the cell that acts like a mirror, so any sunlight that passes through without being absorbed gets bounced right back, giving the cell a second chance to grab that energy. And the impact of that one little tweak, it's staggering. I mean, today, over 90%, think about that, more than 90% of all the silicon solar panels made in the entire world use this PERC technology that was invented right there at UNSW.
But of course, they didn't stop there. UNSW is also pioneering the next giant leap in computing. Back in 2012, their team was the first in the world to create a working quantum bit, a qubit, on a silicon chip. See, a normal computer bit is either a 0 or a 1. A qubit can be a 0 and a 1 at the exact same time. That single difference just blows the doors wide open for computing power, paving the way for the future of AI.
And that brings us to our number one. The top-ranked university in Australia is the University of Melbourne. Now, they're a leader across a ton of fields, but what really cements their spot at the top is their world-changing work in biotech and medicine. You've probably heard of their most famous invention, the bionic ear, or the cochlear implant. Before this, hearing aids could help you detect that a sound was happening, but understanding actual speech was really difficult. Professor Graham Clark's team in Melbourne developed a multi-channel implant. Instead of one signal, it stimulates different nerve points, letting the brain piece together complex sounds and understand a full conversation. It absolutely revolutionized life for people with severe hearing loss.
But it's not just about the research. Melbourne is also famous, or you could say infamous, for something else, a huge, controversial change in how it teaches. In 2008, they completely ditched the traditional, specialized degrees and brought in something called the Melbourne model.
And this new model sparked a massive debate all across Australia. The idea, which is a bit like the American system, is to give you more flexibility. You start with a broad degree, like a Bachelor of Arts or Science, and you can explore different things before you have to specialize in a master's degree. But the critics argue that these general degrees don't really prepare you for the job market, so you're basically forced to do longer, more expensive postgrad study. It's a debate that's still going on.
And really, this whole thing forces us to ask a much bigger question. What is a university education really for? Is it supposed to be a direct, efficient pipeline that shoots you right into a specific career? Or should it be more of a journey of discovery, a chance to explore your passions first? There's no easy answer, but it's a question that's shaping the future of learning, not just in Australia, but everywhere.